Welcome to EPG Pathshala. Under the subject of Indian culture, we have the paper Prehistoric and Protohistoric Cultures of India. Under this paper, we have a module called Indian Urbanization, Impact of Iron on Culture. This module was written by Smita S. Kumar. I will be presenting this module. My name is Selva Kumar. I am Assistant Professor in the Department of Epigraphy and Archaeology, Tamil University, Tanjavur. So before going into the module, we should understand some of the basic definitions related to urbanization. What is urbanization? What is urban culture? How it is contrasted with the rural culture? Urbanization is a process that develops in the historical period. Sometimes it also develops in the protohistoric context. In the early stages of human life, people were generally hunting and gathering their food. They did not produce food. From the Neolithic period onwards, they started producing food. This drastically changed their way of life. They were cultivating plants and they were domesticating animal. As a result of these activities, their life became easier before the period when they were hunting and gathering the food produce. What happened was, as a result of several processes, life started changing. Gradually, craft specialization came into existence. Overall, people's lives changed and cities began to emerge. Cities are actually places where large group of people congregated. They produced several craft goods. These kinds of cities emerged in India during the time of Indus civilization. This is called first urbanization in India. Several cities emerged in what is today now known as northwestern part of India and Pakistan. Harappa and Mohenjo-daro were the important cities. In addition, India also had cities such as Lothal, Kalibangan and several others. These cities marked the first urbanization. During this time, people did not have the knowledge of iron. People were mainly using copper and bronze artifacts. These complex developments led to the urban centers in the Bronze Age. After the Bronze Age, there was a decline or shift in focus from northwestern part of India to other parts of India. This particular phase is called Iron Age. This probably started in the middle of 2nd millennium BC. From then on, several factors influenced the development of urban centers in northern India, also in southern India. The second urbanization actually started around 6th century BC in northern part of India. So in this urbanization, several towns emerged. Gradually, this urbanization spread to different parts of India. So what is urbanization? Urbanization is a process by which cities emerge at strategic point, at political centers, at major markets and also at the areas where there were ports. So the congregation of people in large number contributed to the development of cities. Urban life generally changed the people's attitude. In the rural areas, people were living in small settlements with limited material culture. People were involving in a lot of primary production activities like agriculture and pastoralism. However, in the cities, people could live even without doing agriculture or domestication. They could produce material artifacts, they could produce iron, they could produce ornaments, they could be craftsperson, or they could be doing trade or commercial activities. The urbanization is marked by several changes. Actually, Goddard Child lists 10 major characteristics of urbanization: large monumental building, development of science and technology, development of script, political centers. Like, there are several factors which help us to identify urban centers as well as urbanization. So these factors are very much evidenced in the settlements of the early historic period that emerged around 6th century BC in northern India and in other parts of India slightly later. What was the role of iron in the development of these centers? That's what we are going to look into now. What was the role of iron in the emergence of these centers and the overall way of life? Did iron really impacted the urbanization, and what was its contribution? That's what we are going to see in this module. Let's look into the Iron Age in India. So when we talk about Iron Age, we are discussing the period after the Indus civilization, when actually the iron technology began, and also successful production and improvement in iron technology happened during this period. In addition, iron was used for various cultural activities and its use became very wide. So these kind of use led to changes in the cultural milieu. That is what some scholars believed earlier. That is why they said iron was an important technology for the development of urbanization. However, there are scholars who have other views, who think iron was not so important. What were the stages in the development of iron technology? Scholars generally classify these stages into three. Stage 1 is represented by painted graveware culture in northern India. The subsistent base of this period comprised of hunting and animal husbandry and also low-level agricultural production. The houses of the people were very simple. They were made of wattle and daub. The houses were circular and rectangular in shape. Probably they were all made of perishable material. These were the developments that happened in the first stage. The settlement size also increased during this period. In the stage 2, we see a lot more developments and changes. Northern black polished ware dominated this particular culture, and in this period people were producing this kind of deluxe ware. And this happened mainly in the middle and lower Ganga daub in northern India. In southern India, we have this megalithic culture or the sites with large burial monuments. They were distributed all across southern India, and people started making iron technology. Mainly they started making iron tools. Sometimes they also produced what is known as mild steel. The increase in number of iron artifacts are also seen in this particular period. So we see overall increase in frequency as well as in variety of agricultural implements. Besides, craftsmanship and carpentry and masonry also became important. The houses were probably well built when compared to the previous period. The sizes of the houses, settlements also increased. The burnt bricks were used by the people, and in addition, glass ornaments were produced. Pyrotechnology. Apart from a simple technology, people started manipulating raw material to fabricate glass and produce various kinds of ornaments, obviously indicating the increase in the level of technology of this particular period. In stage 3, we see further development. We have urban centers like Taxila, Kosambi, Hastinapura, Atranchikera, and many other important towns. We also see increase in the number of iron objects, particularly agricultural implements and their types, and also weapons of offense. iron became very common and the smiths used the carburization technique. That means combining iron with carbon, and they could produce very sharp metal, sharp and harder metal of iron which could easily cut, so which became much more important for various activities. So there are several theories on the role of iron in the urbanization. What are these theories? The early scholars considered iron as an important factor. One of the reasons for this is archaeology generally classifies cultures on the basis of material cultural remains. We have Paleolithic period, Mesolithic period, and then Copper Bronze Age, and then Iron Age. Actually, this classification goes back to the time of C.J. Thomson in the 19th century, when he classified Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age category. At that point of time, it was fine. Over the years, we have undertaken so much of research, and we have a better understanding of archaeological cultures. I think we need to change our approach to archaeological research as well as the way we approach material culture. Because of the early views, scholars felt that iron was a very crucial factor. Most of the research that was undertaken were based on scholars' imaginative thinking, or what we call as armchair thinking. This in fact contributed a lot to the interpretations. That is why we see a lot of debate on the importance of iron in agriculture and also in the beginning of urbanization. Let's see what the scholars have to say on the role of iron in urbanization. D.D. Kosambi suggested that the eastern movement of the Indo-Aryans was in order to reach the iron ores in South Bihar. So the movement of people is attributed in search of iron source in northern India. R.S. Sharma highlighted the role of iron access in clearing the forest of the Ganga Valley and iron flows in agricultural expansion in this area. Scholars felt iron was very crucial because with the use of iron, forests could be cleared. Without iron, it was not possible to undertake many of the agricultural activities. That is why they felt iron was crucial in agriculture and later in urbanization. A. Ghosh and Niharanjan Ray argued that the forest of the Ganga Valley could have been cleared through burning. So this is one alternate argument. So we also have evidence for shifting cultivation in many parts of India, also in many parts of the world, where people burn forest and involve in agricultural activities. Makanlal argued that there was no significant increase in the use of iron from the painted grey ware culture to northern black polished ware culture, and that iron technology was not an essential prerequisite for agricultural surplus or urbanization. His interpretation marked difference from the previous interpretation. From this, we understand that iron alone was not important for the process of urbanization. Let's look at some of the technological aspects here. The beginning of iron technology is attributed to the Ganga Valley in the 2nd millennium BC. Detailed studies have been undertaken on the development of iron technology and also on the archaeological data from these regions as well as from other regions. Several furnaces have been studied and several scientific analysis have been undertaken on the minerals. The analysis of archaeological data very clearly indicate complexity in the overall way of life of the people from the early period to the later period. Apart from iron, several other factors had contributed to the complexity. When we go to further south, the megalithic sites also show several evidence for socio-economic transformation and complexities. These sites are also important for understanding the role of iron technology in society and economy in general and urbanization in particular. The concept of surplus. The concept of surplus is very important in the development of civilization. Surplus production actually leads to the production of more quantity of food and other materials than what one or a group of people who are involving in the production can consume. As a result of this surplus, if 10 people can produce food for 500 people, we have the labor of 490 people free for other activities. Their labor can be used for activities other than food production. Naturally, they can be used for various material cultural development activities and also for social and political organization. This is what surplus can do for a society. Therefore, surplus and socio-economic variations in addition to technological development led to the rise of cities and urban centers. So we can now clearly understand it was not just the iron technology, there were a number of other factors that contributed to the development of urbanization. One of the important factor here is polity or political organization. When a society is more organized, it can do many things. When there is a lack of organization, you can see the change, you can see the disorder in the overall system. So political organization is very important for any society to grow or to organize itself more efficiently to tackle the socio-economic fronts. These are the arguments put forward by several scholars like D.K. Chakrabarty, H.P. Ray, Makkanlal and Erdosy. These scholars argue that political authority was very important. When the political authority or the central government is very strong, lot of developments can happen. When there is politically peace, the energy can be spent for other activities. Probably that is what happened in the middle and late phases of Iron Age. There was political stability and that in turn contributed to the development of urban centers. Again, we can't just argue that political stability or political organization was alone. You need to have sufficient population. We need to have craft specialization. We need to have social stratification. So there are several factors that can contribute to urbanization. We can see all these factors influencing the society in the late Iron Age and leading to the development of urbanization. The role of iron in the historical developments as well as in urbanization has been a major issue related to the historical research. Several scholars have extensively discussed on this topic. The scholars have tried to look at how iron technology has influenced the various historical developments. Now, let us look at the views of various scholars and what they have to say about the role of iron technology in historical development as well as in urbanization. Scholars have pointed out that surplus was not a technical product. Surplus means that what people produce more than what they can consume. How can surplus alone can make a change in the society? What decides the surplus? Was it the farmer or the entire society? So we need to look at all these in detail. So the concept of surplus may not be as simple as we assume. Ghosh suggests that political authority is the most important factor in economic and social stratification. Surplus cannot just happen alone. That's what he feels. He suggests that a farmer may not produce a surplus out of his own needs. When a farmer produces something, it is meant for the consumption of his own family. The idea of trade and barter or selling his product with the other develops in a complex society. Early farmers were probably producing surplus food and they were consuming it or distributing among themselves. The idea of surplus involves the distribution of the produced goods among various sections of the society. Who will collect the surplus? Who will distribute it? So you need an agency that can undertake this process. This process cannot happen alone. So therefore you need a political organization. That is what argued by the scholars. It is the authority which can compel him to do so and part with a part of his share for some other people. When you have a political authority, the king or the chief collects the surplus. A farmer produces surplus, he gives it to the chief or a king as a tax or as some kind of contribution. Then the king donates it to various people. Sometimes he may donate to a poet who sings in praise of him. In this way, the surplus produce gets distributed among various sections of the society. The king may employ various servants who will take care of the king's needs, who will be doing services for the king. But where will the king find resources to pay this particular servant? Naturally, the king will have to collect tax from the people in the form of agricultural produce or other things such as in kind, grains or other material, which the king would use to pay the people who produce various services to him. So therefore, the agency of king or polity is very important. Therefore, we cannot just talk about iron technology alone or surplus alone. So we can understand a complex set of factors contribute to the development of urbanization or even social complexity. Here, the author agrees that the social stratification can culminate in a state. Because of this stratification, gradually over a period of time, state formation can take place. State formation is one of the important areas of research. State formation has been the concern of many of the early historians and researchers. How people develop a state. In the prehistoric level, people did not have a state. People were taking care of their own needs. At some point of time, they had a chief who was looking into the affairs of the people of the particular village or a particular region. Gradually, the chief's role became very important as social complexity increased. The chief was necessary to solve social disputes and also to protect the people from enemies' attack. Thus, people found that chief's role was essential. Gradually, the chiefs became very important and they became very significant in the society. They started using symbols and other factors to distinguish them from ordinary people. Then gradually a group of people became part of the polity and the king, and they started serving the chief. The farmers had to produce their food for these people too. Thus, social complexity emerged. Chakrabarti is of the opinion that the use of iron did not bring any such change in agriculture. Again, it is a matter of perception. Some scholars, from their armchair thinking, they feel that iron contributed a lot. It is just perceptual and imaginary thinking. In many of the rural areas, till about 50 years back, people were using simple wooden plow to plow their land. Even though iron was very frequently available, people felt this acacia trees was efficient in plowing. Therefore, iron alone did not make a significant change in agriculture. It might have influenced agriculture, but its presence did not create a stir in the social life. That's what D.K. Chakrabarti things. He adds that if the use of iron became abundant, it was only during the NBP wear phase. Clearly, the society needed iron for a particular purpose. The society grew because of several factors, and then it wanted iron. That is why iron was produced more in number. Therefore, the production of iron is closely related to the demand for iron implements in the society. The role of polity and social classes are also very important in the development of urbanism. So more than the technology, these factors are considered important by Chakrabarti. He feels that iron technology no doubt brought about many social and economic changes, but it was the political authority which ushered the urban phase. He stresses the political authority. Therefore, clearly, political authority was very important in bringing together the people, or in bringing together several regions as one consolidated territory. That is how state formation or territorial formation comes into being. Otherwise, people were spread across, where they were bonded by tribal or village identity. When there is a political authority, clearly the regional states or regional territories that were controlled by the chiefs that emerged. So therefore, the rise of regional powers was very important in the development of urbanism. Several regional powers in different areas contributed to the development of polities. Later on, these polities fought among themselves to control the larger territory. That is what we see after the Mahajanapadas in northern India, especially after 6th century BCE. So this kind of conflicts led to the state formation. So clearly we can understand the role of iron here was minimal. Clearly it was the state or the agency or the political authority that determined the growth. Iron was just one of the factors or one of the implements. Ray is also of the opinion that iron technology was not as significant. Ray also feels that iron technology brought in many changes, but its real effect in the social realm could be felt only by the Magadhan expansion. Clearly, the Magadhan Empire was a main factor. So when there was one particular polity that tried to control much larger region, what happens is there are broader areas constructed as part of a territory. As a result of that, you have a chance to produce more goods, and the goods can be circulated in a broader area. This clearly produces a complex economic system that leads to much more development. Even if you look at present day urban centers of India, you find multi-ethnic population. The kind of factors that are acting in the modern cities of today probably acted in the early period. You go to any of the modern cities of India today, like Bombay or Calcutta or Chennai or Bangalore or Hyderabad, you see multi-ethnic, multi-linguistic population. Why this happens? Because of the urban attraction, many people migrate. Probably the same thing also happened in the early period. In the urban centers, people of different regions moved and they started involving in various activities. To develop such an interaction, you need to have a political authority. If India is together as a country, you can see that people are moving freely from one part to another part. Obviously, the political control is very important that allows people to move from one part of India to another part. Similarly, the political system was very important in the early historic period so that people could be moving people could be acting and pursuing their activities in any cities of their likes in the early historic period. Obviously, we can understand the role of polity and the political integration of a territory in the formation of urban centers. Lal, who is another important scholar who has written several books and articles in relation to the iron technology, has explained in detail as to how the Gangetic Doab region might have been colonized by the painted graveware people. There are more than 99 archaeological sites of the painted graveware cultural phase in northern India. These sites are separated by a distance of 9 to 10 kilometers. So clearly these people were spacing their settlement according to some yardstick. They felt that certain amount of land was necessary for subsistence. Therefore, between each settlement they left certain space. These sites were ranging in size from less than 2 hectares to 2 to 4 hectares in area. Some of the sites were more than 4 hectares. Naturally, these settlements needed sufficient area around for the cultivation. That is why they left the space around these settlements so that they can produce enough food for feeding the people who were settled at this particular site. Therefore, the settlement pattern and the settlement system are also important in understanding the urbanization. That is why we see clearly settlement spacing was done very properly by the ancient people. We can clearly understand here that iron was not alone the factor. Even taking care of the settlements and their location are also important in development of the cities or urbanization. Thus, even if surplus is essentially required for social stratification, it may not appear at the time when the capacity to produce it may be there. He agrees that social stratification can culminate in a state. Therefore, this social stratification is an important factor in the development of urbanization. Another important scholar who has studied the urbanization in North India is George Erdosy. Erdosy has surveyed the Allahabad region and he has identified the data for many archaeological sites. He has analyzed them. Here we have to notice that not only the sites along the river banks developed, but sites in the ephemeral zones like Kaushambi, Jakera also became centers. This clearly indicates that agriculture was not alone important. There were other activities that were also contributing to the development. The location of these two settlements in the ephemeral zones may be because they were located on the boundary of two ecological zones. The ecology is also important. When settlements are located in the boundary of two ecological zones, they are likely to be developed as important urban centers. One of the reasons is that these two different ecological zones can produce different kinds of materials and goods, both natural as well as artifactual. So these goods will be in demand in both these ecological zones. As a result of these developments, markets can develop in the boundaries of these two ecological zones. Thus, it can lead to major urban centers. Therefore, in addition to agricultural activities, commercial as well as exchange activities can also lead to urbanization. That is what we understand here. So the distribution of settlements suggests that the agricultural colonization and the land required for sustaining such sites was available around the river banks. That is why people were preferring river banks more often. There was not much need of an iron plowshare to till the soil. It is not just the iron alone that can make change. Iron alone is not important. Iron plow alone cannot make a great change. Sometimes people feel that wooden plowshare can also do a lot of things. That is why sometimes in rural India people use wooden plowshare. Hence, he believes that certain social, economic and political factors which were operating for many centuries culminated to give the rise of the surplus and its circulation, ultimately leading to the development of urbanization. Here also we can see that it was not just iron alone. There were other factors that were contributing to the development of urban centers. Again, this argument leads to the importance of political authority. Therefore, political authority is important in the formation of urban centers. Finally, let us look into the conclusions and let us look into the factors that led to the development of urbanizations. When we see the views of various scholars, we can very clearly understand that different approaches have been adopted by scholars to understand urbanization. Purely material cultural approaches stressed that only iron was important. Iron alone made the changes and then it led to the development of urbanization. But scholars who looked into social theories felt political organization was equally important. Thus, we see different approaches have contributed to the development of a better understanding of the urbanization in early India. Importance given to technology and its use in economic and social life was stressed by some of the scholars, but some did not agree with this view. Use of iron, in fact, in association with other factors, created a surplus which was a social product, not just technological product. Therefore, the social product was very important in the formulation of urban center and urbanization. The technology also helped, but the technology was not a prime mover. Technology did help in the proliferation of the settlements, but there were other external factors like social and political organization that contributed to the efficient use of the technology. Therefore, we can clearly sum it up that it was not iron alone or surplus alone. A complex set of factors and their interaction contributed to the development of urbanization in early India. That is, the second urbanization of 6th century BCE developed due to a complex set of factors. With this, we are closing this module. If you have any doubt or if you need any clarification, you can refer to the e-text, and of course there are several publications by these authors which you can consult so that you can get a better understanding of the urbanization process in India. Thank you.